So here's the big picture view of what's happening with unconsciousness. First, there's unconscious suffering, then conscious suffering, then staying awake with effort, then using the awake state to question your identity. Then realization of your true nature, where you can now stay awake effortlessly. Let's look at them closer. During unconscious suffering, which is dreaming, you're not knowing that you are dreaming. You think the problem is out there. It's people, things, or events, when the problem is the movie in the mind that you're dreaming. You confuse the unreal mind for the real people in the world. And then we can move on to conscious suffering, where we begin to wake up at times and begin to notice that the outside is not what's hurting us, and that it must be something else. And we start to go inside, and we start to maybe question. Here we are in and out of dreaming. So we're becoming aware that something is happening, even though we don't quite know what's going on. It's a very confusing time. Then we start to catch on that it's our mind which is the problem. And then we struggle to try to leave it alone, or we fight with it. And if you learn that thinking itself is the problem, then you struggle to stay awake with effort while you're still believing your false nature as the mind. That'll go on until you realize your true nature. And that is the end of the inner struggle. So I can't promise you enlightenment, and I can't deny you self-realization either. But I do know that what will happen when you do this work, because it's the same for everyone who is genuine and who does this work with an open but not mushy mind, and that is you'll become happy, largely harmonious and at peace with people in life. And that's actually what most people want awakening for anyway, really, to put an end to suffering. Well, good news, you don't have to be enlightened to put an end to suffering. You can start right here, right now. The more you leave the mind alone and the closer you get to the truth, the happier you are. And if the flame is lit within you for the truth, or it lights up later by doing this work, you're in the right place. It is possible for you to realize your eternal and true nature. It should be, it's yourself. And it's also possible to have an insight, which you pick up with the mind and turn into another story where you get stuck. In fact, this is usually what does happen. Unless you start getting real and are practicing and discerning and getting strong enough to stay out of mind, this is when you'll have an awakening that you think you lost. And there's a dime a dozen of them out there. So many people, I had my awakening and I lost it. You cannot lose the truth. You can't lose knowing the truth once you realize it. And so that wasn't an awakening. That was maybe a momentary insight. It could have even been a nice, happy thought that you were dreaming, but it wasn't the truth because it will not leave you. And so this potential for error is why having coaching is so crucial. So you don't get stuck. So you also don't lose the value of your insight, that you can use it. You have to have direct and real experiences of these insights again and again and again. Like a butterfly who needs the struggle to build strong wings, you're getting stronger through this process. And that will give you more insight, which will make you stronger yet. It opens you to more every time. You can receive more. And so it all builds on itself. In this 5 days, 5 powers experience, you've had a taste. And now you have some momentum that you really shouldn't waste, because none of us knows how long we have. Like Bonnie here, who was told she has 5 years to live.
Before I met you, life was a big struggle all the time. I was on a roller coaster ride. Pretty much my whole life it was like that. And when I got sick 5 years ago, I was diagnosed with emphysema. And that roller coaster went down in that gully and it didn't come back up. And I've got 7 kids. Yep, 7.
Wow.
Yeah, and they didn't want to be around me because I was very depressing. I mean, very depressing. Everything that came out of my mouth was poor me, you know? And so they didn't want nothing to do with me. But my oxygen was at 27% capacity in my lungs, and could only walk maximum of 50 feet. And yeah, I struggled really hard with that. And then the mind kicked in. But it was all said and done. I was on 14 different medicines for anything from pain to mostly mental, psychotic medicines for anxieties and mood disorders. And it got to a point where my kids didn't want to be around me. And so then I started getting very suicidal. I was literally planning a suicide trip, and was storing pills like a chipmunk. It got pretty scary. And when I was done, I just poured them all in a pile and had handfuls. And my husband came in and was like, "What are you doing?" Ripped them out of my hands. And yeah, it was terrible. And meanwhile, my insides were just going crazy. I didn't know anything. I was lost, so lost. So I was on the internet scrolling along, and I ran into one of your classes that you were holding. And at first I was like, "Oh, I don't know. And then I was like, something spoke to me and said, "Give it a try. Listen." So I listened. And then the money part came up, and I'm like, well, I'm broke. I'm disabled. I have no money. All the stories that you hear that you can't do.
Yes.
And my heart said, no, you have to.
Wow.
The difference that it's made in my life has been so incredible. I have not had one roller coaster ride, not one, in a year. A year and a half, right?
Wow.
I have my tools to help me stay. Never again will I be in that position. Never. And, it's been 5 years that they told me I was going to die 5 years ago. And I'm healthier now than I ever have been.
Wow.
My lung capacity is now at 61%.
Woo-hoo.
Yeah, I'm only on 2 medicines, but I no longer take any psychotic meds, nothing like that. I was like, well, what I want is to go back to work and be part of this life that we've built. And I don't want to feel like a burden. And I don't want all of that. But this leash right here is holding me down. I'm attached to this. And I literally was attached, not just physically, but mentally. And that's what killed me right there.
And it was that one conversation, that first conversation that we had for
Yep.
conflict. And it was like the next day she was, "This is not my leash.
Exactly. This is an accessory.
Accessory. This is my jewelry, my accessory."
Nothing a doctor says makes or breaks me. Nothing that anything out here is going to make a difference at all. At all. It did take a minute to see that, just a short minute, but now I actually did go back to work. Man, it was the best thing. And I am experiencing so much love and joy on a daily basis out in nature. It's wonderful. I'm just a completely different place than I was a year ago. What you experience, the reality of what you experience, shows this work works. It works. I'm not suffering. I am happy. I'm ill and I'm happy about it. That's not a complete 360. I don't know. Even the deaths. I lost my sister, my aunt, and my mother within like a 6-month period there, all at the same time. And I didn't suffer over any of it. None of it. I haven't lost
years of love.
He's right here, nice, safe and sound. Holding on to it right here. Right. My heart's just getting bigger because everything's going in there. Thoroughly enjoying life. And to this, I owe you that.
Isn't that inspiring? If you want to become a finder rather than stay a seeker, you need to act. Because when I think about finders versus seekers, I'm often reminded of people like Bonnie, who embraced getting real. And so many of them have had life-altering insights in our community that have changed the direction and the outcome of their lives. And I wonder where they would be if they hadn't made that decision to swap the movies and the stories for the truth. Because the unconscious movie in the mind is a train wreck waiting to happen. As I'm sure you've seen, bad thoughts trigger bad feelings, which trigger worse thoughts in the downward spiral I call the degeneration of thinking. So yeah, I wonder where these members would be today if they'd not recognized and practiced their powers. So that's the big question that today is all about. Are you ready to swap stories for the truth? Are you ready to end the struggle with the voice in your head? Are you ready to discover your capacity for inner peace, no matter what is going on in life? Are you ready to bring a depth of peace and love to your relationships? Are you ready to end your own struggle so that you can be present and of service to others? Are you ready to step out of the movie in the mind and freely live as your real and authentic self? To have an unlimited sense of who you are and an open capacity to be present, truly present, and make a larger positive impact on the world?